All right, episode 5 of Heat Check. I appreciate everyone bearing with me. These take a while to make. I've seen all of your suggestions, and I promise I'm going to try to get to as many as possible, but I appreciate you watching nonetheless. I want to do a little more with the YouTube shorts, so if you've got any NBA draft-related questions that you think I can answer in 60 seconds or less, go ahead and drop them in the comments, and I might make a short out of them. You could ask who I like between two similar prospects, who I like as a best fit for certain teams, just easy stuff like that. So without further ado, let's get into it. Here's how Heat Check works. I will identify one NBA draft prospect and grade what I believe to be their 5 most generally important skills regarding the NBA: scoring, defense, passing and playmaking, athleticism, and overall feel for the game. Since no two prospects are alike, I'll grade a few additional areas specific to that player deemed the swing skills. Each skill will be graded on the Heat Check chart, with ranges from cold all the way to scorching. When that's all said and done, I'll divvy out one final overall score that will have absolutely no bearing or real-world effect on said player whatsoever. Next up is one of my favorite prospects in the class, Gradey Dick. The 2021 Gatorade Player of the Year, Gradey has long been on basketball lovers and draft junkies' radars. Listed at 6'8", 205 pounds, Dick is your prototypical perimeter-style wing. He's lengthy, has got a really nice frame, and has used it to his advantage so far with the Jayhawks, averaging 14 points, 4.9 rebounds, and 1.6 assists while shooting 45% overall, 41% from 3, and 85% from the line. He'll be 19.5 on draft night and has been a key contributor for a really good Kansas team ranked number 5 in the nation. Let's start out with Gradey's athleticism. By most standards, Dick is going to be an average NBA athlete, but there are these flashes here and there of some really sneaky pop and explosion. His height already allows him to get off some dunks and blocks here and there, but every once in a while he can really wow you with it. Overall, his athleticism is pretty solid, it stands out at times, and most importantly, won't be a negative heading into the next level. Averaging nearly 15 points per game on pretty decent efficiency, Dick is one of the best freshman scorers in the country, without being the focal point of the offense, which is a huge selling point. He's shooting 41% from 3 on nearly 6 attempts and is one of the best shooters in the entire country, which we'll get to later. He's an absolute off-ball phenom. Around 45% of his 355 points so far this season have come strictly off catch-and-shoot shots, and even more than that are coming with really little self-creation. Per Synergy's points per shot rating, he doesn't rank below average in any single shot type, and ranks excellent in general shooting, jump shots, catch-and-shoot shots, and dribble jumpers. Klay Thompson is a pretty overused and usually inaccurate wing comp, but strictly speaking offensively, it's hard not to see a few similarities between the things that they do. He's a really active transition scorer, he's constantly prepped and loaded to get out ahead of the opposing defense. While the inside volume and numbers could stand to be just a little bit better, the numbers are pretty great across the board, so why just a warm rating? Dick isn't necessarily incompetent at creating his own shot, but it's certainly not a primary trait, at least to this point. Comparatively, I'm going to feel better about a guy who can create for himself and help others based off of that, especially when I'm drafting in the lottery. There is a little give and take here, because while Gradey could likely be doing a little more offensively numbers-wise without Jalen Wilson, he'd also see quite a bit more defensive attention. Overall, he's an intuitive scorer with one of the purest shots known to man, so this is what teams are going to be looking for. Defensively, I'm feeling cool on Gradey, but you could talk me out of it. I wouldn't say he's bad by any means, especially right now in college. He's lengthy, anticipatory, and seems to read the game at a high level, which has translated to a lot of defensive playmaking with the Jayhawks. But it's just not going to be his bread and butter at the next level. At 6'8", he's likely going to have some really tough asks defensively, and he's not exactly the most physical or imposing defender. That being said, there's some pretty concrete evidence across the board of him being a plus defender at every level so far. His 82 defensive statistical impact per Cerebro Sports is really good. He gives great effort and will likely blend into systems just fine, similarly to his time in college and high school. I think there's a path towards becoming a net even NBA defender for sure. So again, while he's not necessarily bad, comparatively to other wings in the class, there's lots to be desired defensively. Alright, passing and playmaking. I think it is a little important to split these two things up when talking about an off-ball player like Gradey Dick. Dick's passing is really good. He's acutely aware of keeping the ball moving within the offense, similarly to most Kansas players. At 6'8", he's really good at lobbing it over the top in P&R, and he's limited his turnovers with smooth, crisp passes better than a ton of freshmen have in their time. Similarly to the other on-ball skills, we just haven't seen enough true playmaking from Gradey to make assumptions about it. A majority of his assists have come from set plays, and while he's shown some promise slipping passes through tight windows and making correct P&R reads, I don't feel comfortable yet saying that he could be a legit playmaking weapon in the NBA. There's a chance that outside of Kansas' system, he really takes off, but my money is still on seeing him in a pretty similar, albeit important, role in the NBA. So passing would be warm, playmaking I'm feeling cool. In terms of overall feel for the game, I think Gradey has good feel, but it almost needs to be categorized differently. Where other players might have good instincts for using certain dribble moves or making correct passing reads, Gradey has more of a knack for operating off ball. He finds seams and is a timely cutter, puts pressure on defenders by staying really active and sometimes takes them out of the play altogether. And he's really good at getting himself open on the perimeter, even without off-ball screens. Overall, he just has a real knack for finding holes in the defense and operating without the ball. On-ball is a pretty different story, so while I feel he can be categorized as a solid feel player, it might not do it for people who prefer primary handlers and such. Alright, the swing skills. We're going to start with shooting. This isn't necessarily a swing skill because it's not something that he needs to prove or improve on. I would just be remiss to not bring up Gradey Dick shooting in a video about him. It is scorching. He is one of the best pure shooters I've ever scouted, bar none. His mechanics are exceptionally smooth, he's got a high release point at 6'8", 41% on nearly 6 attempts as a freshman is like draft on the spot type stuff for someone of his size. He's going to demand a ton of gravity in the NBA and it's going to make his entire team better because of it. Shot diversity wise, he can hit everything, he can adjust on the fly. As if he wasn't hard enough to guard already, he's got a one dribble pull-up counter for hard closeouts, and if there's something you haven't seen from him yet, you will soon. There's going to be guys with better numbers, and they're great shooters too, but for my money, Gradey is the best shooter in this draft, and I think that will eventually show at the next level. Creation and ball handling are likely two things that would keep Gradey from real impact or even stardom in the NBA. Again, it's really hard to grade because of Kansas' system. I wouldn't say there's one singular thing that Gradey is bad at, but it's more of a mix of everything so far that makes him less of a threat with the ball in hand. He's shown the ability to take defenders off the dribble in simple ways, but he's pretty far off from breaking guys down with elite dribble moves, and his general speed, first step, and horizontal quickness aren't great indicators that that's going to change anytime soon. The handle could stand to get better in a general sense, he just doesn't operate with the ball in hands enough currently, and that's by design, but it's just too many areas to say that it's completely due to the system. All of those things, mixed with no real playmaking chops, at least that we've seen yet, and you can kind of get a feel for why a lot of people think his ceiling is lower than the rest of the lottery picks. I know a few of these things may not seem like a huge deal, but it really is what separates the upper echelon of draft prospects. The grade. I have given Gradey a grade of 8. I think it's important to be completely aware of what you're getting in Gradey Dick. I've said a ton of good things in this video, but despite being a high floor player, Gradey isn't likely to be a high ceiling player, which could be a lottery turnoff for some. There's always an outside chance with his athleticism and feel that he can kind of take the Desmond Bain track to becoming a star or tertiary scorer, but it might not be the most likely scenario. I, for one, really value Gradey's archetype and think that he's among the best pure shooters that I have ever scouted. There's also a chance that he goes somewhere that can develop him, make him a focal point, and he walks out of this thing a 6'8", 3-level scorer who demands defensive attention constantly and can playmake defensively. I think I'd project him to be a mid to high level NBA starter simply due to his shooting gravity and mistake-free game. And I could see anyone taking a shot on him as high as the number 8 pick all the way to the end of the lottery. Let me know what you think of Gradey, drop who you want to see next in the comments, drop me some questions for YouTube Shorts, and we'll see you next time.